Hi, everybody. Jack Russell, president of OneZone. I'm here with my favorite legislator, Representative Alaina Shonkwiler. Alaina, thank you for joining the podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
For those that don't know, Alaina and I have known each other a long time. I used to be a little intern for the city of Noblesville when Alaina worked there, and we had so much fun back in the day. That was like 15 years ago.
It was. I can't believe that.
I know. And but we won't go down
memory lane.
But I just am so excited to have you join our podcast. And one of the things that I thought was really important to sit down and have some discussion is, we're getting ready to go into month 2 down at the Statehouse.
Is that really it?
Yeah.
Just
by the way, it's still January. We have like a couple more days.
This month has been a year.
Well, and I think especially for you are carrying, one of the top bills, 1002, where you have done so much work around that, and then the other bills that you have.
Yeah.
I do think that there's a lot of moving and grooving this first month, and this month feels like pretty, and that's what we're going to talk about too. Is I feel like it's been very, very, and it doesn't help that. It's been cold outside and snowy outside, and
I haven't even been outside. I don't even know what you're talking about.
And I think, well, number one, I want to start with you, and then we'll get into this past month and kind of what you're excited about as we get into the second half, or really February and March. But I'm going to talk about you. So this is your second year as a state rep, and so I thought it would be interesting to talk first a little bit about how your first session being a budget session, a crazy budget session.
Yeah.
And I don't know that this is probably less crazy, but still its own form of crazy. I think Carol, our lobbyist, always says it's always crazy. It's just a different form of crazy.
Yeah.
But what has it been like for you going from, in those first really 2 sessions as a state representative? How is that, from year 1 to year 2?
Yeah, this has been interesting. I think year 1 was, the learning curve. It was, okay, how do I knew how a bill became a law, schoolhouse rock, but
yes.
But also how a bill becomes a law and what that actually looks like at the Statehouse, and pulling back the curtain on that and understanding kind of the different dynamics between the committees and how things get recommitted, and if there's a fiscal impact, what that looks like for Hoosiers. And so that for me was beyond Budget 101, trying to understand the 2-year budget process and understanding what impacts that have from the federal government, from,
right.
As we were watching our president pass the tariffs that were impacting Hoosier, our budget forecast and what that looked like. So, when we looked at legislation that was coming through and that was being introduced, the first question people had was, what's the fiscal? And I use the fiscal, just a little tip for you guys I use the fiscal as a really good kind of summary analysis.
Yeah.
It pulls they do a really good job in LSA of figuring out what departments of the state this legislation could potentially impact, as well as local impact, and it kind of the trickle down. So that's been, I think, a super interesting.
Building relationships and rapport with other reps and senators to figure out, hey, you want to co-author? How do we want to work together?
Yeah.
Who on the other side? Who on the other side is going to support those things? And so I imagine that even mix in not only policy, not only we not knowing where our dollars are going to be, tariffs, things like that, but also as a first year is building relationships. I think
absolutely.
We're very lucky in Hamilton County. I think our delegation has a pretty good relationship with each other, knows how to work together. But there's more than 11.
Yeah.
You have to learn, from South Bend to Evansville, you have to begin to create those relationships. I think it's huge.
I would say our Hamilton County delegation down there, at least in the House side, is very, very new. There's 3 of us that are brand new, and we're learning each other's dynamic with our own local officials and our own constituents, and then kind of balancing that with leadership and with the other representatives, and then of course the Senate side, understanding their dynamic across the board. So building the relationships is huge. Relationship management is literally how legislation gets done.
Yeah. Well, so we go into this session. You have the opportunity. You are 1002. So I think I keep saying 1002 for those that need to know a little bit more about why I keep going. That's a big deal. If you want to tell them, that'd be great. But really looking at for those that are watching podcasts, for those that nerd out on it, those first 10 bills are pretty important.
Yes, typically. So in a budget session, they have 8 to 10 bills that are considered like the agenda bills or the priority bills. So as a caucus, we kind of like, as you know, we have a lot of great ideas that we're filing as potential legislation, and Speaker Houston and leadership goes through those bills to determine like what are our priorities for our House Republican caucus, and that's how agenda bills come to be. They get assigned special numbers, 1001 through, it could be like last year was 1001 through 1008, and then this year is 1001 through 1004. This year, it's an agenda. 1001 was the housing discussion, which we all are.
I think there's some.
It's a work in progress.
You and I were talking about this GR podcast. We always, I told you this. All I hear is Speaker Houston's, voice saying, "Don't judge us how we start. Don't judge us in the middle." Because I do think that's important. Is what you read in the paper is not the end all product. That is what is powerful about our democracy and the way that it works is. Adding amendments, adding things, learning things, seeing how does every action has a reaction, learning those things, and then hearing. And I think this is something you're very good at. I'm saying this not only as your friend, but you've been as a state representative, is listening to your constituents of what are their thoughts and ideas on these things, and that kind of dictates how you also form those things.
Yeah,
because you represent a group of people, and when they have a voice, it's not that it's just randomly sitting in your inbox. It is something like, oh, okay. What do you mean by that? How do we form that? So I think that's important for people to understand is as we go through this process, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think as we go through this process, I think it's so important for people to understand that like we're not like at halftime yet. Like no, by the way, we're not. But Monday. But I still think that people need to understand even at halftime, opportunities for these bills to adapt is really important.
Absolutely. Again, like the speaker, I hear his voice a lot. And don't judge us where we start, don't judge us in the middle, but judge us how we end. And I think for those watching and those listening who maybe don't have like inside information on Statehouse goings on, when we vote a bill in committee, that doesn't mean that's how the bill will make it to the floor. There can be amendments. We get a lot of stakeholder input, feedback from constituents, concerned committee members. Hey, I voted this out of committee, but here's my concern. Like, I don't know if I can vote for it on the floor. Sometimes a vote in committee is just kind of keeping the bill alive, so it can adapt and be adjusted. And I've done that before, and it's you're trusting the process a little bit, which can be scary, especially when you're looking at from the outside in. It can be scary from the inside out. But that's where that relationship management comes from with your colleagues. So again, like we did pass 1001 out of the Statehouse on the House side, and I applaud the speaker because he spoke from the floor to not just to the members of his caucus or the members of the House, but they're making a commitment to continue to work with stakeholders who do have concerns. I know our local officials have a lot of concerns around 1001. And there are, organizations like AIM, Accelerate Indiana Municipalities, that are like cities and towns. You have ICC and AIC, which AIC is the Association of Indiana Counties, and ICC is the county commissioner version of that. So they have concerns, right? And we need to take those into being. And in a short session, when you're up against deadlines and timelines, a bill like this, we can still keep it alive and work with our partners in the Senate. And the sponsor in the Senate is Senator Garten, to work with our stakeholders and potentially continue to adjust it. When it changes in the Senate side, so whatever the House bill version is, gets sent over to the Senate, and if the Senate changes it, then it goes back to the author, and they have to either agree and say, hey, I'm agreeing to these changes, please vote for this. We have to re-vote for it on the House side, those changes. If he doesn't agree or she doesn't agree, then we go to what's called conference committee, which is a little bit Wild West, a little bit. But I do appreciate that process because it helps get a bill to the finish line. And if it doesn't get to the finish line, then, there's always a chance it can come back next year or in years later. But the process to me is as important as the product, is the outcome.
I think, to your point, I think it's good for those that are watching to understand that it's not like Representative Shonkwiler creates a bill, everyone, no one touches the bill. Everyone enjoys it. Goes to the Senate approves it, things like that. There is so much input that is being given and thoughts, and I think that's important for if you're, especially from a OneZone perspective as business leaders. I do think it's important. I think sometimes businesses don't realize how strong their voice is at any level, local level, state level, and that's what we've been trying to encourage our businesses is have a voice at the table. Not only when you disagree with something, but also when you agree with something and say, hey, you're on the right track. We think this could help our business. We think those things. Because a lot of times it's almost like when you take a survey, if you have a bad experience, you're always going to take the survey versus a good experience. But I think it's also important for people to understand that when there are bills and things that are going on that businesses believe are this is the right direction, it's also just as important for them to show that support and to email our representatives and their senators and say, hey, we do think this is going to affect our businesses. And I don't think that the businesses do that enough. And I think what's unique about your background is public-private side of working with businesses to achieve their dreams, really. It's from a small business, local business, downtown. We're in Noblesville, so downtown Noblesville, all the way to mega large corporations that want to invest time, energy, and talent like S&P Corporation.
Yes.
And so I think they do, but do you feel like that sometimes the same way is could we as businesses do a better job of using our voice a little bit better?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say I wish people would come, especially, it's easy to like when a bill is being introduced, then like your antenna goes up and you're like, wait. If we're on the right track, I would love to hear that. Yes. I mean, sometimes you don't always hear that. Yes. I just had a bill that did get a hearing. We decided not to vote it out of committee. And I knew that going in. But it brought up really good points on swipe fees, right? So bankers, don't kill me. Yeah. I appreciate it. I appreciate your input. Yeah. But local businesses. So Blake Fogelsong, Grindstone Public House, and Clancy's Corporation. So the restaurants are, when you are using your credit card, I'm sure you've used your debit card or credit card, even, thank you for getting me coffee this morning, right? And you'll see maybe like at the register, minimum credit card, charge is $2. There's a reason for that. And it's those swipe fees. And those swipe fees do get passed on to the consumer. And so my legislation it was House Bill 1215, if you want to look it up, but it was specifically around, okay, if we're going to charge swipe fees, if banks are going to charge swipe fees, and it's those large, Visa, MasterCard, Discover Card, like it's that, it's those entities. Let's make sure they're not charging it on taxes that the consumer can't control, right? Or the merchant can't control. So sales tax, any other fees. So I was like, let's do it on the subtotal, not on the grand total. Yeah. And lots of good conversation around it from banks saying, hey, we use those swipe fees for fraud protection. We use it for member services like rewards. If you have a credit card that gives you rewards, some of those swipe fees go to that. And then you have the small merchant businesses, restaurants, coffee shops, right? That they're like, they have to raise their prices to cover that. But also from a nonprofit perspective, if you contribute, if you're going to pay $100 for towards a nonprofit to support their mission, and then it might say on there, hey, will you cover the fee, the processing fee, because they want to make sure that full $100 gets to that nonprofit. If you don't cover it, right, they're not getting the full support that you intended. So
we know that pretty well.
Yeah. and so when you think about it from a business perspective, like, hey, let's actually talk about that. So the federal government has some legislation that they are looking at swipe fees as well. This was an attempt on our side to really support those small businesses, to keep that fee. I think it ended up being like $177 million from last year, just on sale, like swipe fees that charged on the sales tax.
And even for I agree with you. I mean, we do 75 events a year. Every could be from a $10 event to a $50 lunch. Every single swipe matters. Yeah. And then if we have to refund, that matters.
That matters.
So there's one of our larger expense line items, all in all, comes from that. Yeah. And we're lucky enough to continue to grow and have a pretty good nest egg as an organization. But you look at small non-for-profits, that is also a hit. But we do hear a lot. That was one that when that hit the papers, then the discussion and the reporter, that did spark a lot of conversation. And that's regardless of where the bill goes. I think that's the unique part of what you do in this public meets the private side is regardless of where the bill goes, it's unique things that come up that we may not think about or we may not. And so that's why, when Representative Shonkwiler, but before she retired, one of the things she always, she'd put these her bills together. And she's like, most of my bills are from my own community that are saying, hey, have you thought about this? Or this could make our life easier. Or could you help us with these things? And I see the same with you, but I always appreciate that with Representative Shonkwiler was she's like, look, in Boone County, I've got this business that's struggling with this. Well, I think we can fix that and these, this way or that way. And so I do think that that's really important for people when we talk about kind of full circle voice is sometimes concerns as long as everybody's civil and everybody has a different conversation, if we're all trying to row in the same boat to accomplish making life easier for small business, making life easier for providing more opportunities for large business to invest back into their people.
Yes.
We're all going to sit down and have this conversation.
Yes.
Sometimes we, and I won't get on my soapbox, but having that stability and working together and saying, hey, this is a struggle I'm having. How can we work together to solve it? And I think that's the power of what you do at the state level in listening to the local level. And I think it helps that your background is, especially in your district, is pretty much if you get the email, we talk about where we're at on the square, but things like that. But you've invested a lot of your time and energy and talent into making Noblesville what it is. And so you do have that, heart on your sleeve when it comes to taking care of the people in this district. So,
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess some people realize that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know. You need that. But I do think that, and that's what I wanted to get to next is, this is a part-time job. Talk a little bit about outside, when you get outside the Statehouse. How has that been like for you, engaging with, constituents, engaging with the community, and how important that is in off session when you're not in session to really get you focused for the following one.
Absolutely. So that is something that I learned a lot from our mayors and local elected officials, our commissioners who they're out in the community. So before I became an elected official, I was like, okay, who do I like? I see this person everywhere. I see that person everywhere. I don't ever, there's a lot of challenging legislation, policy that people feel strongly about that happened at the Statehouse, right? We've saw that in December. We've seen that even coming through this session. And I don't want my neighbors to ever feel like they don't have access to me. So I want to make sure I'm going to, now to be fair, my husband coaches football, so I'm at the Friday night football games. Yeah. But I'm there, and I don't mind when people walk up to me at those events, and so people are like, I don't want to bother you. I know you're here for your family. And I'm like, yeah, that hat never comes off. I'm a legislator. Yes, I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I'm all of those things. But I'm out and about. Feel free to walk up to me. I've had several people walk up and be like, hey, have you ever thought of this? Or would you ever consider this? But in the off season, I try to be pretty deliberate with my time too, of going and visiting businesses and saying, hey, we have legislation that came up. I don't think it's going away. Do you have any issues with this? I was curious about where some of our businesses felt on energy because I'm on the energy committee. And that's one of the agenda bill that I'm carrying this year that passed the House. I'm blanking now this week, but this week, it's been a long week. And that was about affordability and reliability of the grid. So, we just had a major snowstorm. Thankfully, Duke Energy Service area, we didn't lose power in this area at all. That's not the case for other communities, other states. We had a legislator bring up that her family lost power in Mississippi because of the ice storm, and they're not expecting power to come on for another week. How do people survive in that sense? So, and business community, right? You have to care about your people. One of the biggest costs of businesses is the salary, right? And then the next biggest cost of businesses is energy, typically. So that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure I had a better understanding. And so I spend my time out, off session trying to learn and meet with people. I meet with a lot of people that don't necessarily agree with me. I want to understand their perspective. I know I go there and I'm representing everyone. I know I'm voting with my conservative values but this district specifically is, percentage wise, I have a lot of people that reach out and they're like, please don't vote against this or vote against that. It's been an interesting balance, and I want to make sure I'm still reaching out to my mentors, right? Doug Church is one.
Yeah.
I reached out to him yesterday to tell him about some legislation. I just want to make sure I'm still in touch with the district. It's a little challenging. Yes, it's a part-time legislature, but I do have a full-time job.
Yes.
And I have two kids that are busy.
Thank you for joining me on the podcast. No, and I appreciate that. I think I wanted to briefly talk about that because I think people need to understand that, yes, January through March, for this session.
Yeah.
But also, it's
December through February.
And even like, what your July looks like and what, making sure you're out and about. I think that's important.
I hope people also understand, like, we're humans down there. So like we've had legislators. So I see sometimes posts on social media like, why didn't they vote on this? Well, they were at a funeral, like they had somebody pass away in their family, or they had a sick, parent, or they had we're still humans.
Yeah.
And I would say, but on both sides of the aisle, we try really hard to be in our seats to vote.
I love it.
All the time, but
so
it happens. So
as we kind of wind down, I just want to talk about the next half of session.
Sure.
What you're excited about, and what you're looking forward to as we kind of get closer, especially with the bills that you've been charged with and that you've been running with.
Yeah.
Second half, what does that look like for you? What are you excited about? We'll start with excited about.
Excited about. Let's see. Well,
what opportunity?
Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah.
So House Bill 1002 passed the House this week, and it gets assigned. You have to find a sponsor on the Senate side to take the legislation. So Senator Cook, who's the chair of the Utility Committee in the Senate side, is the sponsor of the bill. That doesn't necessarily mean that he just takes it and runs with it and has to get it across the finish line. So I still, as the author of the bill, have to go. So I will present on Thursday this week to the Senate committee the legislation. We'll talk about it. We do have what's called pre-committee, where it's kind of a let's talk through all the bills that are coming over from the House, and we'll kind of go through that as well. So I'm excited for that process. I did have a bill last session, the Indiana Database and Communication System for Law Enforcement. I had that same experience where I got it through the House side, and then I had Senator Clark, who's a retired sheriff from Hendricks County.
Oh yeah.
And he represents Hendricks and Putnam County, and so he was my Senate sponsor. Again, so getting that through the other side. So I went and was going to present the bill, but because he understood really that he presented it. So 1002 this year, I'm probably most excited about getting that across. That is changing some regulatory framework for investor-owned electric utilities. So we have 5 investor-owned electric utilities in the state. Duke Energy for the OneZone chamber area. That's you guys, AES, Indiana Michigan Power, CenterPoint Energy. I'm missing one, but they'll forgive me.
Yes.
Hopefully.
Yes.
But that is for residential, specifically looking at affordability and coming up with ways and reliability. Basically, if you are reviewing an employee, you're holding them to a performance metric, right? And you're rewarding them for good performance, and you're putting on a performance improvement plan for bad performance, right? Or performance is not meeting your expectations. Same lens with what this legislation is doing for utilities. Instead of that cost regulation where they can come in and have a rate case every year, we're putting them on a 3-year performance-based rate making multi-year, so they can't come in to the IURC but every 3 years. So it will help level out some costs. It'll push them into being more cost efficient, and I think helps Hoosiers across the board. So again, that focuses mostly on residential, but there's some affordability pieces there too. So getting that across the Senate finish line is important to me, and that's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah, and that is a huge priority We hear from businesses, as you said.
Yeah.
The electric talent. I mean, what we hear consistently. I mean, what has been unique is on our legislative survey. As you know, we had a good discussion about it. Is talking about local government, and I do want to mention that you did you brought up a fascinating point at Eggs and Issues in January about local control and state. And I think I mean, and for those that weren't there, I thought it was a really fascinating. That's a balance. We talked a lot of our conversation today is a balance of those things. And so we talk about energy when we talk about housing, when we talk about and to the point that I want to make sure that that those that are watching understand is the reason why these large macro conversations matter is, and I'll use a good example. I was out in Washington, D.C. with about 18 other CEOs from across the country, from Washington to Vermont to Florida to Texas to California, and then us, Indiana. I was the only Indiana guy. We were all talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
We are all talking about the same things: housing, energy, talent attraction. And what hit me when we were there was, especially with your background in economic development, what hit me when we were there was when we talk about, sometimes we just say, oh, we have to compete with those around.
Yeah.
We are competing at a national level.
Yes.
From Arizona to Vermont to Florida to Washington. It was just shocking to me. I'm sure you hear this too. Like, we may look at these as like Indiana issues or local issues.
Sure.
Housing as an example, or a talent attraction. That we are having to compete. Our competitors, like for OneZone, I always joke, Carmel's competitors, not Fisher's.
Yeah.
Fisher's competitors, not Noblesville. We have to do a better job even from a regional standpoint of understanding that there are going to be winners and losers over the next 10, 15 years when it comes to creating opportunities in housing, creating efficiencies in energy from long term, creating opportunities to attract talent, all talent, forms of talent. I think that we just look at it as a bill, or we look at it as those things. And I think that's why I appreciate not only, I think having discussions around housing, whether good, bad, or indifferent, I think we have to have them. Having conversations around energy have to happen.
Yeah.
And having conversations around what the future of economic development and talent attraction in our state, we have to have them. Because if we aren't having those conversations, there will be a state somewhere else. And as Mayor Brainerd used to say, we don't have mountains, we don't have oceans.
Sure.
We have really great trails. We have great business friendly environment. We need to sell those things a little bit better. And so, sorry, my tangent, but I think that's important for people to know.
I agree on the national level. I would also argue we're competing globally.
Yeah.
When I look at Indiana, I also want Hoosiers to feel comfortable at what's in their own backyard. So there's a balance that we need to strike, and I think we can do that. I think there's a lot of nuance and misinformation and things out there, but I do hope we keep that conversation going. I think I'm excited about that for the future.
Yeah. I appreciate that we have conversations, because the moment we stop having the conversations around things that we're passionate about or things that matter, that's when it becomes more worrisome to me. I love having conversations, good, bad, and different, learning things, giving perspectives. I know you do too. So, but I didn't want to take up all your time. So number one, thank you for being on the podcast. We appreciate it. We're right down here in the heart of Noblesville. So I figured, let's bring in the state representative of this area. So, but thank you so much for all you do. Thank you for not only joining our podcast, but also being a strong supporter of us as an organization as well. I know you have to put up with me and our lobbyist, Carol, but we truly appreciate you being so pro-business and supporting.
Yeah, thank you.
We're focused on.
Keep talking to us. Yeah. That's what I would tell your audience. Like, keep talking to legislators, keep talking to you and Carol.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.